Just telling you how it is. You know, this is just the way things are. And so you kind of get a little discouraged and your faith flickers. Because you had the experience, you thought you knew, you took a stance to represent how you thought it was, and then suddenly it's all dead. And horrible. And ugly. And empty. Then you say, I've lost it. And at times when the faith flickers and you're part of an organization or a belief system or a technique, that's when you become more fanatic. In order to reinforce your flickering faith, you try to convince everybody else that it's true. So when you feel that fanaticism in another human being, you almost know immediately that their faith is flickering. Faith flickers, and it's often followed by what's called the dark night of the soul. I lost it. You have depression, and then you say, well, I'll just go back into the world because the whole thing was phony anyway. The whole spiritual trip was a hype. And all those people in the world that said there was nothing to it were right, because I've lost it, and I'm not going to get screwed by not having anything. At least I'll have the world. So you go back into whatever part of the world you can grab onto again. The problem is that once it's happened, you can't forget it. You might try, you might sit at a bar and drink and lust and talk about soccer, but you won't be able to forget. Because once you've awakened, you can't get back to sleep. Fully. You can do pretty well. You do pretty well, but you can't do it totally. You just can't do it totally. And at this time, because you have this ability to stand back a little bit from your whole trip, you begin to explore all of the things that you've held in before. And you explore relationships, and you explore sexuality, and you call it Tantra. And you sort of see what you can get and what you can enjoy. You see, the problem was, when you first have the experience that awakens, then you read about the spiritual models and you buy them with your mind, because the Western intellect is so leading the heart that you tend to buy how you ought to be ahead of when you're there. In fact, the person that's acknowledging their lust is, from my point of view, closer to God than a horny celibate. Because you pushed away your fascination with the world prematurely, and you're still fascinated. You still want to know what's happening. You're still looking outside in the world for something. You're looking for love, you're looking for relationship, you're looking for stimulation, you're looking for knowledge, you're looking for a titillation. And as long as you're looking for any of that, you're pulled into the world. As long as there's anything that your eyes can tell you, or your ears can tell you, or your nose, or your tongue, or your skin can tell you, or your thinking mind can know, you're still being pulled into the world. You've got to be the incarnation you are. And the more true you are about where you are, the faster the transformation happens. And when the trips start to fall away, if you're like me, you get really feeling angry and depressed, because you look around and you see that ignorance is bliss. You see that everybody's getting fun out of bowling, and you don't want to bowl anymore. And you don't have anything else. It's the dark night of the soul, when you have lost the world and you're not yet tasting deeply enough of the Spirit. And it's a heavy period. There are a lot of heavy periods in this journey. And comes along with all this a kind of a deeper and a deeper understanding, a wisdom, a deeper wisdom. So you're understanding sort of how it all is and why this is all happening, and that yes, the trips will fall away, and it still hurts, because there are still the veils of attachment, of still wanting not to die into the Spirit. Because the awakening was merely the foreshadowing of the death into living Spirit. It's not the death. It's just the foreshadowing of the death. It's at this point, as you understand more and you see your predicament and you're acting out all your stuff, that your understanding of the way karma works makes it almost impossible for you to continue to act in ways which exploit others or which create karma for other human beings. And it starts to temper your behavior. The commandments start to be real for you, not as things you ought to follow, which is the way you've done it all your life. I ought to be good. As if you need to have these external controls to repress the internal stuff that is not acceptable to you. And finally, all of the precepts or the commandments or whatever they are become sort of obvious to you. Oh, that's the way life has to be, because that's the way it works. It's merely a statement of how it works. I'm just describing to you the stages of dying into spirit. Because only when you are spirit is there no death and no birth. And then you are. And you become who you truly are.
You taught me the courage of stars before you left. How light carries on endlessly, even after death, with sureness of breath. You explain the infinite, how rare and beautiful it is to even exist. I couldn't help but ask you to say it all again. I tried to write it down, but I could never find the pen. I'd give anything to hear you say it one more time, that the universe was made just to be seen by my eye. And I couldn't help but ask you to say it all again. I tried to write it down, but I could never find the pen. I'd give anything to hear you say it one more time, that the universe was made just to be seen by my eyes.
And then you are. And you become who you truly are.
The shortness of breath, I'll explain the infinite, how rare and beautiful it truly